Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today, we will discuss Unit 8 of Med 002, Global and Regional Dimensions of Sustainable Development. Sustainable development is about balancing economic growth with environmental protection. It ensures that we use natural resources wisely so future generations can also meet their needs. However, global inequalities pose a major challenge to sustainability. Developed nations, or the North, make up only 20% of the world's population but consume 80% of global resources. Meanwhile, developing nations in the South struggle with poverty, environmental damage, and rapid urbanization. Let's have an overlook of regional and global challenges on next slide. Both regional and global approaches are essential to tackling these challenges. Before we go into the details, let's first get an overview of the key issues we will be discussing. We'll explore major regional issues such as desertification, floods, rising sea levels, and deforestation, followed by key global challenges like the North-South divide, biodiversity loss, climate change, and intellectual property rights. Now, let's move on to the next slide and explore regional challenges like desertification and droughts. Desertification is a serious environmental issue affecting over 250 million people globally. It happens when fertile land turns into deserts due to human activities and climate change. More than 4 billion hectares are at risk. The primary causes of desertification are overcultivation, deforestation, poor irrigation, and overgrazing. When land is overused and not properly managed, it loses its ability to retain water and nutrients, leading to soil degradation. The consequences are serious like loss of topsoil, water scarcity, and increased salinization. Topsoil takes centuries to form but can be lost within a few seasons due to extreme weather and poor land practices. Without topsoil, plants cannot grow, worsening desertification. For example, in Spain, nearly 20% of land is at risk of desertification. In India, states like Rajasthan and Gujarat face severe water shortages and declining soil quality. To tackle this problem, some solutions like afforestation, agroforestry, and better water management. Planting trees, integrating farming with forestry, and improving irrigation techniques help restore degraded land. International initiatives, like the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD, play a key role in supporting these efforts. In India, local watershed projects combine traditional rainwater harvesting with modern irrigation systems to conserve water and restore land. Now that we've covered desertification, let's move to the next slide and discuss another major regional issue, floods and soil erosion. Floods and soil erosion pose serious threats to people living on mountains and river valleys. These disasters damage homes, disrupt agriculture, and force people to relocate. Deforestation worsens floods and erosion by removing tree cover that stabilizes the soil. Without trees, heavy rains lead to rapid water runoff, causing flash floods and landslides. Soil degradation further harms agriculture by washing away fertile land, reducing crop productivity, and making farming unsustainable. In the Himalayan region, unchecked development and deforestation have led to severe soil erosion. Nepal loses about 1.5 million tons of soil annually, and northern Indian states like Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh frequently experience flash floods and landslides, causing destruction to farms, homes, and roads. Solutions to this issue are sustainable land management and reforestation. Techniques such as terracing, planting trees, and community-led conservation projects help prevent soil erosion. The Green Amayaga project in Rwanda successfully reduced soil erosion by up to 50%, setting an example for similar efforts worldwide. Protecting forests and implementing sustainable land management practices can significantly reduce the impact of floods and soil erosion. Now, let's move to the next slide and discuss another issue, rising sea levels and its effects. As global temperatures rise, so do sea levels. Scientists predict sea levels could rise by 40 to 65 centimeters by 2100 due to melting ice caps and the expansion of seawater as it warms. Many cities, including Miami, Jakarta, and Venice, are at risk of frequent coastal flooding, land loss, and infrastructure damage. In India, coastal states like West Bengal, Orissa, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands face similar dangers. Rising sea levels bring serious threats such as coastal flooding, beach erosion, and water salinity. As seawater moves inland, it contaminates freshwater supplies, making drinking water scarce and damaging farmland. In Bangladesh, coastal erosion is forcing people to migrate, with 1% of land lost every year. To mitigate these effects, adaptive measures like coastal protection, renewable energy, and mangrove restoration are essential. The Netherlands has built sea walls, storm barriers, and even floating buildings to protect low-lying areas. In India, mangrove restoration and embankments help reduce flood damage. Mangroves act as natural buffers against storm surges while supporting biodiversity. Now that we've covered rising sea levels, let's move on to the next regional issue, deforestation. Deforestation is one of the biggest environmental threats today. Since 1960, tropical forests have been disappearing at an alarming rate. The main cause of deforestation are agriculture, cattle ranching, and logging. The consequences are also very serious, such as soil degradation, biodiversity loss, and increased carbon emissions. The Amazon rainforest, often called the lungs of the earth, is losing vast areas to farming and logging, impacting global climate regulation. In India, deforestation is a major concern in states like Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, where forests are being cleared for agriculture and commercial logging. To address deforestation, solutions like sustainable forestry, afforestation, and conservation efforts are essential. Programs like REDD+, reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, provide financial incentives for protecting forests. In India, community-led forestry projects and government reforestation initiatives have helped slow deforestation. When local communities take part in forest management, it ensures sustainable use and long-term conservation. Till now we have explored key regional issues. Let's now shift our focus to global challenges. Our next slide introduces one of the most significant global concerns, the North-South divide. The North-South divide highlights significant inequalities in resource consumption and economic development. The North, consisting of developed and industrialized nations, holds only 20% of the world's population but consumes over 80% of global resources. In contrast, the South, home to many developing nations, faces challenges such as poverty, environmental degradation, and resource depletion. This divide is caused by factors such as heavy debt burdens, lack of access to clean technology, and the over-extraction of natural resources from the South. Many developing nations rely on outdated technologies and unsustainable practices because they lack financial and technological support. For example, in several African and South Asian countries, reliance on biomass for cooking leads to deforestation and indoor pollution. Meanwhile, wealthier nations continue to consume vast amounts of energy and resources, exacerbating global inequalities. To address this imbalance, fair trade, technology transfer, and sustainable economic policies are essential. Programs like the Clean Development Mechanism, CDM, under the Kyoto Protocol, help fund sustainable projects in developing countries. In India, investments in renewable energy, such as large-scale solar and wind projects, have helped reduce dependence on fossil fuels while creating jobs and improving rural living conditions. Bridging the North-South divide requires international cooperation. Developed nations must support cleaner, more sustainable technologies in the South while ensuring fair trade policies that benefit both sides. Now, let's move to the next global challenge, biodiversity loss. Biodiversity, which means the variety of life on Earth, and it is essential for maintaining healthy ecosystems, ensuring food security, and supporting medical advancements. However, biodiversity is under threat due to habitat destruction, pollution, and excessive resource use. The Amazon rainforest, often called the lungs of the earth, is losing trees rapidly, reducing its ability to absorb carbon dioxide and regulate the climate. Coral reefs, home to 25% of marine life, are also at risk due to warming oceans, leading to widespread damage to marine ecosystems. In India, the Western Ghats are a biodiversity hotspot with numerous unique plant and animal species. Indigenous communities in these regions have long practiced sustainable agriculture and forest conservation, helping preserve biodiversity while supporting their livelihoods. To address biodiversity loss, conservation policies, biosafe farming, and international cooperation are crucial. The United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity promotes the sustainable use of genetic resources and the protection of traditional knowledge. In India, the Biodiversity Act integrates indigenous conservation practices with modern strategies, ensuring biodiversity is preserved for future generations. Now, let's move to the next slide and discuss another major global challenge, climate change. Climate change is one of the most urgent challenges of our time. Global temperatures are rising by about 0.3 degrees Celsius per decade, leading to more heat waves, desertification, and extreme weather events. The primary cause is greenhouse gas emissions from industries, transportation, and deforestation, which trap heat in the atmosphere and disrupt natural climate patterns. In India, climate change is already affecting daily life. Unpredictable monsoon rains, prolonged droughts, and stronger cyclones are disrupting agriculture and threatening millions of livelihoods. States like Maharashtra and Karnataka have experienced severe droughts, while coastal areas like Odisha have suffered extensive damage from intense cyclones. To deal with the problem of climate change, countries are investing in renewable energy sources, like solar and wind power. India's clean energy projects, backed by global initiatives such as the Kyoto Protocol, are helping lower carbon emissions. Other strategies include carbon taxes, improved infrastructure, and early warning systems for extreme weather. Now, let's move to the next topic, intellectual property rights and their impact on global sustainability. Intellectual property rights, IPR, protect innovations but can sometimes limit access to essential resources. This is particularly true in agriculture and healthcare. For example, patents on genetically modified crops or GMO make seeds costly for farmers, and strict drug patents can restrict access to life-saving medicines. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted these issues when strict IPR policies delayed vaccine distribution in many developing nations. India's generic drug industry demonstrates how flexible IPR policies can make medicines more affordable, while still encouraging research and development. Balancing innovation with global accessibility is crucial for sustainable development. Shared technology policies and fair trade agreements can help expand access to green solutions like solar panels and drought-resistant seeds. The Trade-Related Intellectual Property Rights (TRIPS) agreement is periodically reviewed to ensure it does not block access to crucial technologies. Let's move to the final slide of today's session and summarize what we've covered. Throughout this session, we have explored critical challenges affecting sustainable development at both regional and global levels. At the regional level, issues such as desertification, floods, rising sea levels, and deforestation directly impact millions of lives. In India, for example, Rajasthan's desertification and the fragile Himalayan ecosystem highlight the urgent need for sustainable land and water management. On a global scale, challenges like the North-South divide, biodiversity loss, climate change, and intellectual property rights emphasize the necessity of international cooperation. Developed nations must take responsibility for reducing excessive resource consumption, while developing nations need access to technology and financial support to implement sustainable practices. Protecting forests, cutting emissions, and conserving biodiversity are key steps toward sustainability. Techniques such as improved water management, reforestation, and sustainable land use practices create a strong foundation for long-term environmental and economic stability. Sustainable development is a continuous journey that requires global commitment. Whether it's afforestation in dry regions, coastal protection measures, or international technology sharing, every effort counts. By working together and balancing regional needs with global responsibilities, we can turn sustainability from an ideal into reality, ensuring a healthier and more equitable future for all. Thank you for joining this session. In our next session, we'll explore Unit 9, State Initiatives, where we will discuss the role of government policies, judicial interventions, and institutional mechanisms in environmental protection.